My name's Wiley Buck. I'm a senior program manager with Great River Greening, and my region goes from Brainerd down to Blaine. We have this wonderful little site in Pillager. It's right at the confluence of the Crow Wing River and Pillager Creek, and it's great. It's an uncut gem habitat-wise. It's a confluence of the river, so it's a popular spot for cultures going all the way back. I guess we don't know yet. That's why Nino cultural consultants will find out for us. And we're going to bring volunteers.
We're here on the outskirts of Pillager, where the two rivers flow together. This is a location that already has a known archaeological site on it that was found by Institute for Minnesota Archaeology, and some of the pivotal work that early archaeologists like Doug Burke were doing back here in the 80s. So there's a potential project coming up here in the near future to work with Great River Greening and others to, they're going to be doing some vegetation clearing and some restoration of lands. And ahead of that work, they have the opportunity, and now they have some legacy funding to do some archaeological components along with it. So we know there's an archaeological site on the far side of the project area. We're just going to walk out that direction and come back this way, look at existing conditions, best locations to do our shovel testing, and prepare potentially to do a public archaeology day coming up in the future.
Yeah, it'll be easy to dig if we can get a shovel in the ground.
So we're at the confluence. We're inside the heart of where this site is. It actually is on both sides of the river, and it has both Native American components and early Euro-American components, including a farmstead and a section of the ox cart trail. We'll bushwhack up one through here, and then we'll continue along this, because they have their trail right at the first possible spot where we could do testing. So this is really nice and open. We'll get a really good idea if there's anything here, because the purpose of phase one is for identification of site. So is there a site here, yes or no? And then if there is a site here, what are its general horizontal and vertical boundaries? Some Native American ceramics.
Native American ceramics. We've got one piece previously. Right. Oh, whoa, big car glass. Gotta go break the bad news, Jeremy. His site's not quite as small and compact as he first thought.
He was asking about Knife River Flint earlier. Yep. Here's our first piece of Knife River Flint.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So this is material from all the way from the western North Dakotas. It has been brought here by people either trading it across the Dakotas to this part of Minnesota, or people actually, more likely during this period, actually migrating around in a grand circle of resource gathering and gathering this material at a certain point in that circle.
I heard you made a discovery. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Just a woodland point, I believe it was called. I was shaking the screen, just switched over from Jeremy Nino, and I started shaking. Couldn't have been more than five to 10 minutes, and there it was. It was just so awesome.
Did you recognize it right away?
Thought I found something, but it was a sharp little point, but as far as being able to identify what it really was, of course not, but it was just awesome to find it.
Did you think that something like this was going to happen today when you showed up?
No. I was hoping.
One of the teams has found a late woodland projectile point. These types of small points are oftentimes called bird points or Madison triangular points. They're very typical of the end of the woodland period about 500 years ago. During this period, Native Americans are using what we think of as the classic bow and arrow for hunting and for warfare. So that is an arrowhead. Oftentimes when you're talking with people and they say, oh, I found arrowheads, they actually were probably finding dart tips and things like that. But during
by the end of the late woodland, they're using bow and arrow technology. Individuals are living, a lot of people on the landscape. We're starting to see large villages, palisaded villages, huge trade networks are occurring. So as we've been going this entire day, we've been finding the debris from making stone tools, probably knives and scrapers and projectile points. We found some pottery. The pottery was quite thin, so we thought maybe we had a late woodland site, but here we have definitive proof, a diagnostic projectile point from the end of the time period, being able to show us exactly where and when this site would be from. Now what's interesting, of course, is that this projectile point was found in the very top, just below the grass, where we would expect to find a very close to us in time projectile point. However, this site actually extends 2 feet down into the soil, so we could be looking at multiple occupations of Native Americans coming back to this area time and again to camp, to use resources, to make family connections, to engage in trade, to do marriage and other social rites, to bury their relatives in nearby mound groups. So this could be the very end of a long, continuous period of site occupation and use, and we'll only know that through continued research and study. We've learned a lot in one short day. I know it feels like a long day from all the holes you've dug, but in one short day we've learned an important piece of the history of this local spot, and we could not have done it without you. So thank you so much, and thank you to our partners at Great River Greening for giving us this opportunity, and the Legacy Amendment for funding it.